Hey everyone, how are we doing today? How are we doing this Thursday? I'm a few minutes late. My apologies. I'm a few minutes late, guys. How are we doing? How's it going? Let me know you can see me and hear me as I just get all my screens up here. Make sure we are live. See, this is why I gotta make sure we're live on Facebook. Live. We're gonna try, let me see. Why is this not? Let me know you can see me and hear me. Let me know so that everyone knows we are live. Why can I not see you guys today? Yeah, you guys let me know that you can see me. Let me know that I'm actually live in the group. If anyone who's live right now, just drop a comment and say, hey, thumbs up, like I can see you, I can hear you. It doesn't look like I'm live, but I should be. All right, I'm gonna refresh real quick. You guys tell me, let me know, those of you joining in live. My name is Stephanie. I am your 7-figure legal nurse consultant. Today here with you for another live interactive training topic, and it's something that I get asked a lot. So in lieu of the holiday of Halloween, we figured we could make this subject super fun and talk about some of my scariest moments as a legal nurse consultant, because there are times when you feel like, oh, you might have the WTF moments. And I've had a couple of those. And I know I can share some stories of others who've also had those. But let me know, guys. Let me know if you're joining in live. Let me know where you're from. If you're brand new with us live, what state you're from. I'd love to see how big our network is and where we're chiming in from. And I love to see all of your faces. So drop a comment. Let me know if you can see me and hear me. Let's make sure we are good to go, because it looks like I was having some tech issues earlier. And then we'll jump right into some fun storytelling, just so I can share some subjects with you. I had to jot a few things down just because it's hard to remember sometimes until the things come up. I feel like you guys know as nurses, right? Like you kind of forget some of the stories, things that happen with patients, wildest things you've ever seen, until someone starts talking about something and you're like, oh my gosh, I had this one time. So I feel like that's what's happened a little bit. Let me know if you can see me and hear me. I just want to make sure that we are actually live in the group and that we are playing. It does look like, okay, it does look like we're live. Fantastic. Fantastic. So again, in lieu of the holidays, I think what is Carly picked this subject. She said, what are your scariest moments as a legal nurse consultant? So I have some funny, some not so funny, some that, I mean, I can laugh at now, but in the moment I wasn't laughing at all. I have some total screw ups that I've had. So I'll share those with you, because this is, sometimes it's part of it. Sometimes you mess up and you got to own it. And you want to have E&O insurance, errors and omission insurance, because that's pretty important. So either way, I have some stories that, if you guys are interested, I'm happy to share. I think it's always cool to share those experiences. I know a lot of you in the group are legal nurse consultants, and then a lot of you are aspiring to be. And so those of you who are aspiring to be, you might screw up, and it's okay. And you have errors and omissions insurance, and you're honest and truthful with your attorney client, and that is that. I remember in the very beginning. So this is pretty cliche, but it is probably one of the most frightening moments. Like when you get your first case, and you're like, yes, all right, I did it, and then you actually get the records, and you're like, do I know what I'm doing? I don't know what I'm doing. I remember when I got my first case, and this was years ago, and they gave me, I didn't collect a retainer up front. So that's scary reflecting on it, but I didn't collect a retainer up front. And I got the records, and they were mailed to me in like file boxes, and they were it was so many. It felt like so many. Anyways, I was so paranoid about fingerprints. Like I was so paranoid that I thought, because you hear about like, don't get the fingerprints, don't mess up the documents, make sure the original records are, good, things like that. And so this had some handwritten records and things like that in it. And I'm not going to lie, I wore gloves. I was so paranoid about touching anything. Like I thought it, like, I don't know. I guess I was thinking like turning to some sort of crime scene or something, like if I had fingerprints on the records. So I wore gloves, thumbing through these records. I don't know why now I was thinking like that. I was so paranoid. It doesn't even make sense. But I remember that I, for some reason, had to organize them with gloves on. I have another case I remember I got, and I actually sent the wrong report to the attorney. It was probably one of the more devastating moments, I think, where I just was like, Stephanie, you ding dong. I just straight up emailed the wrong report to the wrong attorney, and didn't have like a cover page on it or anything. So I just got a huge lashing. That was a good one. That was a good scold. I got a good scolding and a good lashing from that attorney. Needless to say, I did lose him as a client. He was like, if you can be this careless with someone else's records, you can be this careless with mine. And I don't blame him. I screwed up. I definitely did. I cried a little bit over that one. It was a good scolding, though. I learned a lot. It has never, you have those moments where you're like, this will never happen again. And that has never happened again, ever happened again. I learned a lot about email and cover pages and protecting emails and encrypting emails and all the things in sending and encrypting and all that. I went on a binge to learn a lot back in the day on how to up my security game, if you will, so that I did not make that mistake again and screw up. So, oh boy, I just remember the scolding. Yes, I felt like I got my hand slapped. It was like getting a spanking or something. Not a good way. And like a little kid, you did something wrong way. So, I'm trying to think when I got my first case. So when I got my first case, I remember I was super excited. Again, I didn't collect a retainer. And I thumbed through the records with gloves on, and I remember sitting there thinking, I have no idea what I'm doing. So I was probably about 4 or 5 days into it. Yeah, probably like 4 or 5 days. It wasn't quite a week. And I remember thinking, I got to send this stuff back to them and just tell them I can't do this, because I was just second guessing the crap out of myself. And I thought, there's no way. I'm not up for this. I oversold myself. I can't do this. I'm overcommitted. The doubt and the fear was immense. So if any of you go through something like that, it's easy for me to say now to trust yourself. But I was there at one point. Like, I remember feeling like that. I remember thinking, oh my God, what I do. I remember not hitting a deadline. I forgot. Oh, that was terrible. I had told her I'd have it due. It was a Friday, and I straight up did not turn it on Friday. I didn't work that day. I remember, I think I was in PACU at the time, and I didn't work. I think I worked extra that night, or I was on call that night or something like that. Anyways, I was supposed to finish it on Friday and turn it in. It was like already done. Report was pretty much finished. Going back, doing like a draft review. Like I always like to go back and take a second look at my reports on a separate day, because I feel like I catch things. You feel like I feel like I caught little grammatical errors and punctuation and things like that, where they were just easier when I wasn't sitting there looking at it for hours or something. I just come back fresh the next morning. And I didn't do that on Friday, and I straight up forgot. We went out of town that weekend, came back, and nothing. And so here's, I think, where I had like the moment of panic, was because she never even messaged me like, hey, where's my report? So come Monday, when I realized that I hadn't sent it in and I missed a deadline, I was questioning whether or not I should even send it to her, because I thought, I have utterly failed. I am losing this client. This is, well, what have I, here I go again, like the spiral, right? This, oh my gosh, WTF, I've completely messed up. My saving grace was that she didn't even know it wasn't in her inbox. So I just thought to myself, like, okay, so this is like 2 weeks later when I figure this out. So I send her it over on Monday. I'm like, I'm so terribly sorry. I know we had a deadline. I know it was a tight deadline. And I know she was adamant about her deadlines. And I was like, I am so sorry. I have no excuses. I just flat out forgot. Here is what my day looked like before, and here is what happened. And I completely spaced. So the way that one went down is she didn't open the email for a few days. Because I didn't even get a thanks or anything until like the end of that week. So the whole week I didn't really hear from her, and I was in that heightened panic, paranoia state, fearful, WTF, like sitting there, you know, impatiently waiting, checking my email 40 times a day. Oh my God, just waiting for the ball to drop. It was like I was waiting for her to just be like, well, thanks for being honest, but have a nice day. Like we want, you know, I don't know, something like that. I was waiting for it. It was, the waiting game was terrible. But I didn't want to bug her. And then I was like, I don't want to make it worse. Because then if I bug her and I make it worse, she's going to be like, okay, not only were you late, but now you're also annoying. You know, you know how your mind spirals. So I have no idea. Anyway, she finally responded, and her response was so short to me. I remember thinking, all right, this will be my last case with her. I definitely screwed this up. She's adamant about the one thing she said to me in the beginning. She was like, I'm big on deadlines. This is what I need. And I'm like, okay. I remember this case was a short case anyways. And she needed it in like less than 2 weeks time. So I remember squeezing this in really, because I was still working full time at the bedside. So I remember squeezing this in thinking I'll have it done, working really diligently, and then freaking forgot to send it in on the deadline. Either way, a couple weeks go by, right? I get that short little thanks, I received it or whatever email, and I didn't hear back. And I was like, oh, that's it. I'd written it off. I had my tears and, like decided what's done is done. You totally screwed that up, Stephanie. And then she came back. It was like the next week, and she's like, hey, can we hop on a call so we can go over this record? I about fell out of my chair. We hopped on a call, and I had to ask her. I was like, did you get my first email? She's like, of course I did. I told you I received it. I'm like, yeah, but I was late. And she's like, well, everyone goofs up every once in a while. At least you had a great weekend. And I'm like, did that just really happen? Like, is she just in a really great mood? Or was my report that good? Like, you know how we like to try and justify like why someone else was thinking the way they were? So that was my moment where I was like, I just thought I was fired. Like, I thought we were done. And she was, she was so nonchalant about it. So I don't know. I don't even know how to coach you guys on something like that. Cause I think that if I did that, I'd still react the same way. I'd be like, oh crap. I mean, I'll own up to my mistake. There's not ever a point where you get rid of the, oh crap, what did I do? Like, I know I messed up. And then you're just like kind of sitting on the hook waiting for the response. You know what I mean? Like you're waiting for the ball to drop. So that was one of those moments. I remember this is probably one why you need errors and omission insurance. Not that I was sued, but it's just a good example. I had a case that my responsibility, right, was to go through. I paginated the medical records, organized them all. I was in the midst of writing my report, came back to it, I don't know, a week later or something like that, maybe not that long. And I skipped a certain segment of the medical records. And it was a medical malpractice case, and it was a portion of the record. I don't even know how I did this. I don't know. It was a portion of the medical records I skipped that had pertinent information that basically shifted the entire case. And the way the story went down was I have my report written out. It's a very lengthy report. They take it to litigation, and then defense comes back and says and nails them with A, B, C, D. Well, what about X? And so I get an infuriating call from the attorney who was like, defense came back with X, Y, Z. And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. That's not the record. She's like, then where the hell are they pulling it from? Lo and behold, I go back on this avid hunt, fearful, like, oh my gosh, what did I miss? And I did actually. I don't know how I did it, but I missed a giant section of the medical records that from a medical malpractice case contained pivotal information that the attorney really needed to know to prepare the rebuttal against defense on that, so that the case would still have substance. And she was blindsided in litigation, and that was on me. it was so totally on me. That was probably a huge guilt moment for me where I was like, oh, I feel like I just am failed. I just failed this case. I failed the attorney. I failed the family, the client, you know, the attorney client's client. Because it was a big malpractice case. I mean, needless to say, they recovered it, but it was, I have no idea how I messed that up. It's just a good, really good reason to have E&O insurance. You know, if you ever come across a moment where you accidentally omit something, I don't think anyone would ever intentionally omit anything, right? Well, and if you are, well, that's wrong anyways, but accidentally omitting something, or missing it, right? It was an error. It was a miss. Lo and behold, it was not intentional. It wasn't omitted. It just, I screwed up, and gapped on a section of the records. And that just happened to be, when I went back, I remember thinking, oh my God, where the hell was this information when I wrote my report? And I'm thumbing through my report, like I just avid, you know, like really just in this like crash moment of, where did this come from? It just showed up. It couldn't have showed up. I paginated the medical records. Like it was there the whole time. So that I had nothing to do but sit on my tail and own my fault and just hope that the attorney would forgive. And basically all I got was, you better help me figure out how to recover this case. That was the end of our relationship. It was one of those moments, or else kind of thing. That was definitely an intense moment. I shed quite some tears on that one. I remember being so upset at myself, so upset. But you know, I have to say, guys, hindsight, it's proof that errors do happen. And you know, if for some reason something like this does happen to you and you do lose a client, you can always go get more clients and cases. It sucks because you can't undo what you did, but yeah. Oh, there's another. Okay, so I remember this medical malpractice case. The doctor amputated the wrong foot, and the nurse who worked with the doctor at the facility had to help us build the case against him. And she had been working with this surgeon for like forever. She'd known him since she was like a med tech. So that was probably, I guess I shouldn't say it was one of my scariest. It was one of the toughest emotional cases because I felt like I also had to support the nurse. And she was basically, it was difficult for her because she felt like someone she had known for so long. Not that she didn't agree with what happened, like he was in the wrong and was, you know, it was a huge malpractice suit at that point, but for her to have to step in and knowingly publicly be a part of the lawsuit, it was devastating to her, right? As her identity, herself as a person, her commitment to the doctor, but she knew he was in the wrong. So that was a really emotional case. It was emotional probably because I had to support another nurse. And I had never been through anything like that personally. Like I hadn't worked with a doctor who had done something so wrong and that I had to like support the case against him. You know, it was, I've never had to do that. So I think that was probably that was a really, emotionally overwhelming case, but not from a perspective of like personal overwhelm, you know, but overwhelm for someone else who had to help us build the case against the hospital and the surgeon. It just was, I don't know, you know, you can imagine there's a part of you it's like unsettling to think, right? And I had, you could call it past trauma when I was deposed, when I was the nurse for only 6 months. And that was terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. And I think maybe that's why that case was so hard for me, because it brought up that kind of memory. And I just remember being where I was thinking my entire career was down the toilet. And I felt like that's how I could relate to her and support her, because that's exactly how she felt. She was like, oh my God, like I'm basically writing off my career. No one will ever hire me. They'll think I'm two-faced. Like the whole hospital is going to be against me. There's just a lot of politics involved in that as well. But she did the right thing. She did the right thing. One of the other, I guess, scariest daunting type cases was a medical malpractice case I did that was strictly on a nurse. And that's probably, to my core, one of the most difficult things I've ever done is prosecute another nurse. Because I know, you know, we all know it gets crazy on the floors. It gets crazy in the units. Sometimes we space on things, right? How do we prioritize these things? But there were so many bouts of gross negligence in this record from the same nurse. It like couldn't be defended. I like couldn't talk myself out of it. I remember telling the attorney in the beginning, I was like, hey, you just need to know, like, I'm a nurse prosecuting another nurse here. And he said, is that going to be a problem? I said, I don't think so, because there is like so many bouts of gross negligence. But as much as I told myself, no, it wasn't an issue, I definitely think down to my core it was, because we know so many times that the nurse is just a link in a mess that's already been created, right? Whether it's lack of supplies, short staffing, unsafe environments, whatever it is, like a nurse is usually only one piece of it all. However, this factor and the accusations in this case, they were just so unavoidable. They were irrevocable. I couldn't justify against them, although I did try. And probably just to make myself feel better, to be like, well, what if she did this? And what if this was happening? And I remember running through all kinds of scenarios in my head to try and justify why the nurse did what she did. But there was just nothing that could go against the black and white of the negligence. And it was repetitious. And so that's where, the case became a big case. And I don't know. It's tough. That was tough for me to do, but I felt like, you know what, you're doing the right thing, because this can't be repeated and this can't continue to happen. And, you have to have that conversation with yourself, right? Like, am I having an unbiased opinion? Or that's probably right. One of the triggering things is if you feel like you have to do a case involving a nurse, you become biased in the sense that you just want to protect them, right? Because I'm a nurse, so I want to protect the nurse in this circumstance. I want to justify. And so that's something that becomes challenging sometimes. I think we have to be really cognizant of is, do we have a bias, or do we develop a favoritism in reading the case? And you have to, it's challenging now. It's always challenging to be the neutral party, to say, I have to just state the facts, or here's my opinion and here's why, without actually becoming emotionally involved in cases, if that makes sense. So that's probably always a big challenge in and of itself, that, can sometimes feel distressing, frustrating. I don't know to the words of all the emotions that could come up, but I think there's a lot when you are put in a position like that, where you're like, want to take a side, essentially. So, well, that's just, there's me just sharing food for thought, I guess. There was a really big lawsuit. It was a falls case, and the guy that fell, hit his head, suffered brain damage. So it became a sentinel event. Huge legal case, a very distressing situation for the family, because this guy was basically like day from being discharged after his post-op case. He had a medical device implant. It was not cardiac. It was orthopedic. And so he was like a day or two from being discharged. And this happened, and it completely pivoted, right? It rocked their world. That was an emotional case for me. And I had to really, really fight on that case to stay grounded and centered without picking and choosing a side, without playing favoritism. Because, there's a part of you that wants to favor the family because that shouldn't have happened. But then there's a part of you that wants to favor the nurse because the nurse couldn't be in the room and couldn't answer the call because of short staffing. Like, there's so many issues with this case. So many. It was an intense case. It was high pressure, a lot of fear involved, a lot of intense litigation and allegations, from the family to the hospital, to the nurse, to the staff. It was one of those. That was a stressful case for me. It was just stressful to be a part of. And again, to be the person who is trying not to pick a side, who's trying not to be here or there, or, because you want your opinion to be, well, in a lot of these cases, you want to give the 360, right? You want to say, well, this is what supports your case, but here's what defense could say. You know what I mean? This is what I did, a lot of plaintiff stuff. So this is what supports your case. Here's what defense is going to come at you and say. Here's kind of what's been in the record. Here's why this or this isn't going to work, right? Here's the rebuttal of the defense. When you say X, they're going to say Y, and your response is going to need to be something like Z. So, it's hard sometimes. It's hard sometimes to restrain yourself from wanting to have an opinion. We professionally opine, right? But having opinion without being biased, without choosing a side, without allowing you to become personally connected to the case and the situation and the circumstance, especially on some of these medical malpractice cases, because they're long and they're lengthy and they're big, right? The records are big. So it's, it's like reading a thick novel and you get engulfed in the story. And naturally in a story, we pick a side. You're always team someone. You always choose someone, right? You're either with the narrator or against them, or I don't know what kind of novels you guys read, but either way, I feel like we naturally pick a side, and that is really, really hard not to do. It's hard to stay so centered and just be like, I really feel like this patient deserves XYZ without, pushing or I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for? Really just comes down to the bias. I'm at a loss for the word, but it's really hard to stay centered. And that is, I think, a challenge that, some people deal with. That's why some cases are very distressing when you get involved, and when you get involved with the family and you've worked with the attorney and you've been on a call with the family, then you put faces to names, and it just becomes like it becomes difficult. It also becomes difficult when, the family is making a claim and you have to also prove them wrong. That's hard to do because it's devastating in some aspects to do, which can be terrifying, I guess, technically, to stay on subject, but it's devastating and it's saddening when, they want to file for suit, but it's like, we can't sue for XYZ because you refused therapy. Every time they offered this in the hospital, it says that you refused. And so, there's a party that feels for the family and feels for the patient and feels that they deserve something and deserves compensation, but yet the record shows that they were non-compliant the entire time. So that's also difficult. That's also difficult to, when you're in the midst of a case and new things surface, right? Because this is what happens when you get more records, right? There are times new things surface, and then all of a sudden, as a legal nurse, your opinion shifts, and it has to shift because of the records. It doesn't feel in alignment with what you want to happen because, like I said, we all feel like we're going to pick a side when we get into that kind of involvement. That's a medical malpractice, personal injury turned medical malpractice case. So I think some of those are challenging. You can call them scariest, emotionally entailing and intertwining. There are so many times though, where obviously the other part is that how much we get to help people and the justice we do get to perform and on such a grander scale. I remember I wrote, here's another really, everyone, if you haven't gone through this, I hope you don't ever have to go through this. I know someone recently who just went through this. And I always say, back up your report, save your stuff, save it to a flash drive or save it somewhere, because at this day and age, to basically say, I lost my report, there's no excuse, right? Not with technology, not with how we can save records and save documents. So sorry guys, my puppies. No. So there's, you know, the whole dog ate my homework. Well, I had lost the document, right, on my computer. This was a little bit back in the day where things were set up on automatic save. So there was that moment of, oh crap, I need to turn this in 3 days. I've been working on this report and I just lost it all. Did I really just freaking lose it? Did I not save that? Did my power go out and I completely lose everything? So I like I said, I feel like we all at some point have a moment like this where you do the oh crap, and I mean I recovered it, but that's not the point. The feeling, the 2 minutes of WTF felt like 2 hours in the sense that I was like, I have to go back and rewrite this report. I've been working on this for so long. I don't know. I think we all have those. I mean, everyone has one of those. I mean, one of our success advisors had this moment like a couple weeks ago where she was like, oh my God, my computer just froze. It stopped working. I was in the midst of writing a report, like all the things. And like the screen goes dark and you're like, oh, what happened? So the best part about nowadays is like we have even Windows, even things that are online, you can like restore, right? Google or Chrome or whatever shut down and appropriately restore, or whatever, or didn't complete shutdown restore. So like we had things like that now that we didn't have. Even seriously, even like 5-6 years ago, like I don't remember any of those. If we had that, I did not know about it. But technology has advanced so much in the last, 3 or 4 years. It's made things a lot easier to work with. A lot easier, a lot more maneuverable, a lot more efficient. So that makes it better. But anyone ever have like a scary story? I don't even if it's not like as a legal nurse, does anyone have one of those stories? Let me see here. Let me tag a couple people here. Anyone have any of those stories they want to share? Just pop it in the chat. I always like to hear others too, because I feel like this stuff, exists, right? All the time. I feel like I'm just not getting comments at all for some reason. This is so strange. I'm wondering if it's the feed or if it's, anyone on the call, a legal nurse consultant, it has anything that you guys drop it in the feed. Anyways, just drop it in the chat, drop it in the feed. If you have a story to share, I always like to hear them, whether it's nurse or legal nurse. Test. Thank you, Scott. So yeah, that worked. That definitely worked. All right, cool. So if any of you have stories, share them in the feed. Even if you're not a legal nurse or a nurse, I feel like there's so much that relates, when it comes to like the scariest moments, but I feel like there's a lot of the scariest moments or the moments like WTF when everybody goes through, right? Especially when you know that you're the only person you can hold responsible for it. You're like, I'm the only person who could have screwed this up. This is all on me. How do I fix this? So you have to be cognizant of the mental spiral you can get into, but also cognizant of your value. And if give anyone a piece of wisdom, if you screw up and lose a case, you can always go get another. That's why we teach the nationwide approach that we do. It's not like word of mouth is going to get out and the whole town's going to hate you or something like that. It's not like that. And there have been a couple times where I've lost relationships based on my screw ups earlier on. That happened earlier on. And it's an experience and it's a learning experience. And that's what you have to take it as, right? You can't belittle yourself and say, I'm not worth it. I'm not valuable. You have to take that as a learning experience and continue to grow your business and continue to understand your value and your worth and step back into your power after a moment of weakness. Give yourself some grace, right? I did it after moments of weakness. I'd step back into my power and be like, okay, this does not define me. This isn't typical of me. Actually, that is the rarity of me. And this won't happen again. And what am I going to do? What kind of process am I going to put in place so that this does not happen again? And that's what I would do. That's what I would do. So guys, I've enjoyed sharing these with you in lieu of the Halloween day coming up. So if there's any stories you guys want to share, drop them in the feed, drop them in the chat, and we'll see you guys again next Thursday for our live interactive training as well. Don't forget, guys, if you are on, we also have our business growth bundle. It's our promotion that is going on for this month. If you have not heard of it, I tagged the girls inside of this feed right here. I tagged the girls to make sure that they were aware that you guys could reach out to them. Our business growth bundle, guys, is a huge asset. It is branding and website design done by my personal designer, my personal tech guru herself, plus a 6-figure scale up call, plus a 1-to-1, a 1-hour one-on-one coaching session after your mentorship. So continued support even after you graduate from the mentorship. And so a high value, all completely free. We haven't done a promotion in a really long time. This has come up quite a bit, and we got a lot of this from the needs of nurses who've come through the mentorship who gave us these recommendations, and we want to offer them to you absolutely free for those of you who join the mentorship this month. So just food for thought. Again, if you're thinking about it, reach out. We have JJ, Trish, Riley, and Carly in the feed here. You can tag them or just say, I am in. Say I'm in, and I will make sure that someone on our team gets back to you. Otherwise, have a fantastic weekend, and I'll see you after the holiday.